May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, doing our bit to help preserve the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have a guest, Richard Jaffe. Richard was a student at Zen Center for many years, a very diligent student, and was a really nice guy. Everybody liked Richard. He was always sort of cheerful. And he went on to become a very distinguished scholar. And I've been trying to get him to do a podcast for a long time. He's a professor at Duke University. Let me read you what it says on his page there, a page for him there. So Richard Jaffe, let me see what it says up top. Professor of Religious Studies. Richard Jaffe specializes in the study of Buddhism in early modern and modern Japan. In particularly, he has focused his research and teaching on the transformations that took place in Japanese Buddhist practice in the 19th and 20th centuries. Jaffe's current research centers on the role of D.T. Suzuki in the globalization of Japanese Buddhism in the 20th century. Well, that's really a sort of understatement. He must be the foremost authority on D.T. Suzuki. I mean, he published this giant 4-volume book. I think it was part of it, but I think it was his doing. Not complete works, selected works, but like it was 4 volumes. But he also has a book on D.T. Suzuki's lectures at Columbia and is involved with other publishing, of course, through the years. And he talks about the books he's working on now, a biography of D.T. Suzuki. We talk about him doing a volume on selected writings, because he comes up with some very, very good writings of D.T. Suzuki. And D.T. Suzuki wrote so much, it's hard to know where that is. And I think he's got the best eye for it. His first book, which we talk about later on, is Neither Monk Nor Layman, Clerical Marriage in Modern Japanese Buddhism. And that's really interesting because, it was against the law until Meiji Restoration for Japanese priests to get married. And he talks about that. And there's his books on D.T. Suzuki, and he gets into that in this podcast. Anyway, let's just go on and get going, because he has a lot to say that's good. And he asked me a lot of questions, too. And so I leave those in, the questions and answers. Richard, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah.
How are you doing? Is more of the question.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, indeed. Got a lot of sleep last night.
Oh, that's good. Well, I don't know if you've seen the grave site they've built at Green Gulch now for Zen Center people.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah,
But you got to get a stone, and
yeah.
they sell stones, and you buy into it. I don't believe it's for ashes. I don't think that we're supposed to put ashes in Green Gulch or at Tassajara. I'm sure there's some of that done, but it's against the law. I think it's considered occupancy. You could probably bring your own stone, but it's a memorial site. And the stones they sell that I've seen have, are the samples, have Chinese characters, Japanese characters, kanji. I'm sure you could put anything you wanted on it. But I imagine if somebody said, I have a nice stone I want to put there, they'd say, okay. But you might have to pay for the space. I don't know. I don't know what all the rules. They're probably still working them out. Immediately raised $90,000 for it, and that's Zen Center, man.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, that's all right. I'm not. That's Zen Center. That's Zen Center does things at a sort of, it seems to me, extravagant level a lot of the times.
Mm.
But that's all right. It's really going strong. I mean, it's
Yeah, I mean they have their issues. I took uh in June, this past June, 330 something Bosan from Japan that I know. One of them I've known his whole life, literally. He's at the temple that I have stayed at for many, many years. His family's been extremely kind to me, and he was born the year after I first started going to this particular temple in Tokyo. And I've seen him grow up. He got ordained. He went to Eiheiji, went to Komazawa.
yeah,
So he and two friends who were at Eiheiji well, one was at Sojiji, the other one was at Eiheiji. They worked together. They wanted to see some Northern California Buddhist sites. So they flew to San Francisco and I flew out and met them and spent a week showing them around San Francisco Zen Center, Sonoma Mountain, uh, Akiba's place, and Green Gulch. We stayed at Green Gulch for 3 nights, and they really it was very enjoyable, interesting to see stuff through their eyes, and they were quite struck, by how zazen crazy American Buddhists are, for one thing.
right, right. It's like
Yeah,
nothing like in Japan. Uh,
yeah.
and yeah, but so let's leave behind that. Let's continue this
Okay.
line that has to do
Yes.
with your uh, professional, academic, uh, everything, life. Uh,
Uh-huh.
so, uh, I always like to ask first, what people are doing now. Do you have, and mention any books or anything, that are good to let people know. But what are you up to now? You look great.
Well, thank you.
Oh, hi there. How are you? Good to see
Oh,
you,
hi.
Elaine.
Good to see you, David.
Yeah.
I'm sending you all the best, all my best wishes and love while you take care of yourself.
Oh, yeah. Other people are taking care of me too. Uh, uh, and not only at the hospital, but here at home, we have two housekeepers. Not at the
Yeah.
same time, but when Dick was packing there, walking around, I said, I didn't pack my bags. My housekeeper did. and and then Katrinka went over it and added some things, and then I looked at it. Um, and yeah, they're very attentive. Um, so I'm in good hands. And uh,
Okay.
yeah, it's just more existence, See what happens next.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
all are very photogenic. You are. You know, I don't use the video in the
Okay.
podcast, but I
Uh,
keep it
okay.
because Zoom records it. I don't even know how to turn the video off from recording on
Mm,
Zoom.
Oh, well, it's great.
yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Well, you look very photogenic too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm a
You
I'm
look, no, you
quite
look great.
a specimen. Yeah.
Well, aren't we all? But yeah, really thinking of you. Anyway, just you've been a fantastic fellow traveler, and you mean a lot to us.
Well,
So
you all
thank you.
mean a lot to me. You know, you and I did a podcast talk a few years
Hmm.
ago, but I've
Yeah.
been trying to get Richard to do it since
Yeah.
I
Well, we did
started.
one. I did one, and then I've been.
You
Yeah,
should
I'm
do
sorry.
it.
Well, we're doing it.
Right, okay. Well, I'll let you do it. We'll
Yeah,
see you again, okay?
yeah,
Hopefully in person
yeah.
or
Oh, yeah,
non-person.
sure. I ain't leaving here. Good Lord. Yeah, you can come here.
We got to go to Bali to see
Yeah, I
it.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye. Wow.
All right. So
But
you're asking me about, what's going on in terms of my research, study, et cetera, et cetera. I'm still teaching. I'm going to be retiring the end of the academic year in 2027. I'm going to stop teaching at Duke.
how old are
And
you?
I am 71.
Oh, you're
And
you're
I've
10
been,
years younger than me
yeah,
because
yeah,
I'll be 81 in less than a month.
wow. Well, Elaine's dad always used to say you look like a million. So,
Ha ha ha. That's good. That reminds
yeah.
me of Red Skeleton. You remember him?
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, I know.
Yeah, he said there's. I think it was him. He said there's three ages. When you get older, there's young, middle age, and looking good.
Philip Roth, the author, when he was interviewed by Esquire late in his life, they asked him how it was getting older. And he said, old age isn't a battle, old age is a massacre. Is what
Oh,
he
that's
said.
funny. I think it's a reward. I like it.
What?
I think it's a
Yeah.
reward.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I like, but you know, as Suzuki said, we practice Zen so we can enjoy our old age,
Mm.
and that certainly worked for me. Uh, yeah, but he said a lot of things. We practice Zen for, and then there'd be many. You could make a list. Uh,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So, all
So
right.
anyway,
So, what are you
I'm
teaching at Duke?
this semester I'm teaching a course on biography, writing biography of religious leaders
Hmm.
and spiritual leaders, I called it. And one of the books we're going to read is Crooked Cucumber, actually.
Excellent choice.
Yes. And we'll read a biography of Billy Graham, Vivekananda. And then at Duke, we have papers of R.H. Blythe that I acquired from Norman Waddell, who was the literary executor for Blythe.
Oh,
And we have the Rochester Zen Center papers. We have Philip Kaplow's papers that I got through a PhD student of mine who had practiced there at Rochester. And she brokered having them give all of the papers to Duke. So they're at Duke now. So my students and I are going to look through those papers and think about what kind of stuff goes into writing a biography, as you well know, having done the Suzuki Roshi book.
yeah.
In fact, if you have the energy for it, maybe you could come and we'll do another Zoom. You could talk to my students about, they can pepper you with questions, the graduates. It's a PhD level seminar,
Oh,
only
yeah,
6 students.
sure. That'd be fun.
Okay.
better do it sooner than later.
Uh, yes. Well, okay. I'll work it out. And the other course I'm teaching is something I've been doing since 2004. It's for undergraduates. It's a seminar on Buddhist meditation. And I start with classic Buddhist meditation. Then we do look at some Zen stuff, Zen mind, beginner's mind. And then we go into these modern iterations of Buddhist meditation, like mindfulness-based stress reduction and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy and
Yeah.
psychological experiments on meditators and drugs in meditation, hallucinogenics in meditation, which
Yeah.
I guess Vanya is exploring.
Well, not anymore. But
Oh, he's
there was that Netflix movie about one test they did with the control group and
mm,
ascension and using ecstasy. Well, one thing they discovered was there was no point in using the control group. They're
mm,
pretty obvious.
uh-huh.
And that was interesting. Uh, his Long was interested in it. He actually met with Hoffman, uh,
mm,
who sort of discovered LSD. Uh,
uh-huh.
and, what his point was, it had played such an important role in his life early on. He wanted to look into it. He's amazing. I was just with him in October.
Mm.
Just amazing uh, what he's done. But go on, go on.
So anyway, so I'm teaching, and then, as you know, I think you got a hold of a copy of the latest book I edited, it's Spreading Indra's Net. Do you have a
Yes,
copy
I
of?
have that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the last decade, I've really been focusing on the big Suzuki, not the little Suzuki,
Right.
DT Suzuki, as Suzuki Roshi once said to somebody, "I'm the little Suzuki. He's
Not
the big."
just once. Most
Okay.
things he just said once, but that he used now and then.
Uh-huh. So, he's one of the great ancestors of American Buddhism
Oh,
and
absolutely.
fascinating life. He lived almost till he was 96 and was active much of his life and really was instrumental in spreading Zen outside of Japan
Oh,
and
yeah.
Buddhism outside. Yeah.
I think he wrote
So,
about 50 books or something for
yeah,
Westerners
yes,
and 50 for Japanese or something.
yeah, his collected works, which in Japanese, which includes some of the English stuff translated into Japanese, but not all of it, is 40 volumes.
Yeah,
And that includes his letters and stuff, but he was just incredibly prolific. I mean, there's a lot of repetition. If you
sure.
write that much, you're going to repeat yourself some.
Yeah.
But so I looked at the Columbia lectures he gave very carefully, and along the way, as it says in the introduction, I don't know if you noticed, but one of the co-editors I credited is a woman named Elizabeth Thomas,
Hmm.
who was a Southerner who was a pioneering female Egyptologist in the mid 20th century, actually from the 30s, 40s on. And she became a very earnest and avid attendee of his seminars at Columbia. And she took 41 notebooks full of notes on his lectures.
Wow.
And the Columbia Lectures volume I published is based on her notes.
Oh,
And he lectured from 52 to 57. And, all these well-known people, artists, intellectuals, Eric Fromm, John Cage, Dorothy Norman, Shari Deans, Rauschenberg, they all were there at these lectures, and really Ibram Lassaw influenced their art, their culture, their writing. And a guy named Henry Bugby, a philosopher, was influenced by these lectures and by Suzuki's presence in New York. So I finished that volume, and now I'm turning to doing a full life biography of DT Suzuki from 1870 to 1966. And I think that'll be the project that sort of carries me out. Hopefully, I'll finish it in the next 3-4 years. I think it'll take.
Wow,
And
that is
once I retire, I
amazing.
can give it what, David?
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's
So
so
I and
impressive.
I've got good access to his archives in Japan. I've managed to stay in their good graces. I don't know if you ran into this problem working on Shunryu, probably not, but the DT Suzuki group in Japan that have his papers, they're pretty protective of his image. They can be
Yeah,
pretty
that's right.
protective.
I know that. You know how I know
And
it?
how do you know that?
Um, what's his name? I helped a
Brian
guy.
Victoria?
Huh?
Brian Victoria? Brian
No,
Victoria?
I know Ryan Victoria. I know where he's coming from. A sort of one-pointed, uh, very myopic.
Yeah.
But he contributed something that was good, and it's balanced out by
Yeah.
everything
No, he
else.
stirs the pot,
But
he makes
he's, anyway. Uh, no,
uh-huh.
I can't remember the guy's name. I worked with him and helped him, who made the D.T. Suzuki documentary. Uh,
Oh, Michael Goldberg.
yeah, Michael Goldberg.
Yeah, I'm in
And
touch with him.
and you know, it was like supported by what, the D.T. Suzuki Foundation, and he was very limited I arranged for him to interview Brian Victoria. I arranged for him to interview
Uh-huh.
Elsie Mitchell.
Mitchell.
Uh,
Yeah.
I arranged for him to interview this scholar that that Peter Schneider and Jane Schneider lived near in, oh God, town right near Kyoto. Uh, anyway, uh, and he was like a teacher of theirs, and he had been like a student of D.T. Suzuki's for years.
Hmm.
Uh, and actually, he said something that Brian Victoria and Michael said they'd they'd love to get out of, but Michael couldn't. Is he said D.T. Suzuki had now D.T. Suzuki said the emperor had the spirit of a flea,
Oh,
and
I've not
he's
heard
very
that.
cautious what he said, but
Yeah.
they couldn't verify it, or not Brian, Michael couldn't verify it.
Uh-huh.
Uh, yeah, he did an amazing thing.
Yeah, so yeah, Suzuki, DT Suzuki lectured to the emperor in 1946. R.H. Blythe helped arrange it because R.H. Blythe was the English language tutor to who was then the crown prince, and he became the emperor. Now he's the retired emperor after Hirohito.
Oh
He
yeah,
was his English language tutor.
wow.
And so after the war, R.H. Blythe, according to Norman Waddell, played a important role in keeping the emperor from having to abdicate. He sort of was an intermediary with MacArthur Blythe between the imperial family and Blythe, and helped lobby to keep the emperor from having to abdicate after the war. And the Americans were afraid it would cause unrest, etc., and they left him in place. But he also arranged somehow for Suzuki to come and spend 2-3 days lecturing on Buddhism to the emperor. And he gave a series of talks called, it's published as The Essence of Buddhism.
Yeah,
But so anyway, yeah, that's the main thing I'm working on is his writings. And there's, as you just said, there's so much, and there's so many letters that there's 4 volumes of his letters in Japanese and English to various people, and there's correspondence that if you track down what other people have received from him, you go to the other end of it. You've got these books with the letters Suzuki sent,
Oh, yeah.
but then you want to see where they went. So if you track these things down various places, it's pretty time consuming, but I love doing that sort of library archival work, running around Japan and the United States, going to the Rockefeller Center archive, places like that, digging up these documents. University of Southern Illinois, Carbondale has papers of Suzuki's from when he was first in the United States at the turn of the 19th to the 20th century.
Right.
He lived in Illinois, as the documentary shows, for out in LaSalle, Illinois, which is a couple hours southwest of Chicago. And it's a zinc mine. It was a zinc ore processing town, and a very wealthy German immigrant to the United States funded him to come to the United States, and he lived there. He must have been the only, I kids. It's interesting for me to try to imagine what it must have been like. It was a real rough and tumble town. It was at the crossroads of a couple of important waterways, the Michigan and Illinois Canal and the Chicago River, and they would send goods down or up from New Orleans along this route. And it was a town that had more bars than churches,
Ha!
and Suzuki was probably the only Asian, may have been one of the only Asian there at the time. And so it's interesting to think about what it must have been like for him. And he's learning English and speaking English for the first time to a lot of native speakers.
Yeah.
And just living there on his own is pretty adventurous. He was 26, 27 at the time when he first
Yeah.
got there.
Well, the fewer, what I've noticed, the fewer of a minority there are, less discrimination there is.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
you're
if you're
probably right.
one, it it's you're just you don't even notice anything. Uh, Now, didn't he come as a translator for who's Soen Shaku?
No, he translated Soen Shaku's address at the World Parliament of Religions in 1893, but he didn't come then. He came back in, I think it was 1897 is when he came, if I remember correctly, to the United States. And he um, eventually did translate for Soen when Soen came and lived in the San Francisco area at Ida Russell's house out on Ocean Avenue. And she had a little group of people practicing Zen with him for a period of a few months, and Suzuki translated for him, interpreted for him then. But
Yeah.
they remained very close up until the time Soen died in 1919.
Well,
Suzuki remained quite close with him and continuing his koan study with him and practicing with him. And then they worked on a journal together when Suzuki returned to Japan in 1909 till Soen died in 1919.
so
Um,
Soen's and Soen had Nyogen Senzaki with him then, right?
right. That was
And
another one of his students that he sort of
right,
sent off to
right,
California,
right.
said, figure it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, um, and that sitting group, I call it the first Zendo in America. Is that right?
Uh-huh. Uh, I'm not 100% sure, but it was a very early one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know when Zen Shuji in Los Angeles started.
Oh, it's in
Um,
Shuji. Oh, I've
yeah,
got that. Um,
yeah.
Actually, it's controversial because it started, I forget the names. It started in the home of the founder, who was also the founder, I think, of Sokoji. Uh,
Mm,
and that's all in, it's in Crooked Cucumber. I think it is. But there's a second edition of Crooked Cucumber, and it's online on cuke.com,
Mm.
and it's in the audiobook, and it's in German. Uh, and it's, I have like 60 pages on cuke.com of changes. But that
Mm.
includes explanations and stuff.
Mhm.
It's very, very little. Uh, the main one was from Agata Curie to Hebo Curie for Crooked
Mm.
Cucumber,
Uh-huh.
from a big cucumber to what Hoitsu called the little tiny cucumber at the end of the spiraling vine, and Hebo meant runt, you know.
Mm.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
but anyway, there's sort of like two founding dates. I know who I was dealing with in the Japanese translation of. I was dealing with, the guy who knew the most. There was, I forget his name, the one who was, with the Valley Zendo out of
Oh,
Antaiji.
Fujita Isho.
Yeah, and we discussed which state to use. It was like, I think I've got it on Cuke.com. Uh, and it's like it was in his home first, and then a temple was founded. So they've got sort of two dates there.
Yeah.
But what was so Koji was about 1935, around there,
Uh,
and
and the first Zen Institute was quite early
oh
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, and
Uh,
that's in a class by itself because it was not just for Japanese Americans, uh,
yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah. But Senzaki was quite early and was on his own. There's actually probably about 4 or 5 years ago, the New York Zen Center, they finally settled their dispute with Edo uh, Roshi. And
hey, Ado,
yeah,
he's not
yeah,
alive.
I know. But before he died, they had to settle, what to do with this Zen Center and who owned what and which papers were whose. And they finally had settled. It may have been further back. I do that now. I say 5 years ago, it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But before he died, they had settled and they got access to these file cabinets. And in the file cabinets were a number of letters and papers of Nyogen Senzaki, which some Japanese scholars are now working on. They were a lot of
Oh.
them, they were almost all in Japanese. Some of them were his lectures that he gave in the internment camps, in the concentration camps.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
his Teisho from the concentration camps.
Oh.
And there was also correspondence back and forth with DT Suzuki, particularly when Suzuki would come to the United States, but other times as well. So, for example, there's a really interesting exchange after the rape of Nanking took place. There was the Japanese press was covering it one way, that there was this violent up. It was sort of like what's going on now with the Trump administration.
Right.
They characterized it as this violent uprising by the Chinese that had to be put down. And I think Suzuki, through his American wife, Beatrice, heard through the expat community. This would have been in like 37, something like that. Heard through the expat community that this wasn't the whole story. And he sent a letter to Nyogen Senzaki and he said, send me American press coverage about what happened in Nanking. I want you to tell me what's I want to see what's going on,
Yeah.
but don't send me the whole magazine or newspaper because the censors will take it. Cut the articles out and put them in your letter and send them to me. So he clearly was, this goes against everything Brian Victoria says really about Suzuki. He was
Well, Brian
trying,
Victoria takes he's very selective.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's going after Shunryu too, some and saying, you
Well,
know,
I've been over
questioned
that
that
a
he was,
lot with him, And
Yeah.
it, uh, and uh, um, I'm not really an historian like him, but
Uh-huh.
I I spent time with Shunyu's with people who were with him at the time, and everything it says in Crooked Cucumber is from them. There's nothing from me. Um,
Uh-huh.
and uh, there's a scene in Crooked Cucumber where I take Suzuki to the Berkeley Zendo, and then later we go over to UC Berkeley, and we're right there in the center. You know where what Telegraph Avenue ends,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and a, a sound truck goes by calling for the violent, not violent, calling for the overthrow of the U.S. government. So I put that in there. Well, it was neat for one thing, just to show the difference, the way Americans see resistance and the way Japanese do. Japanese, it's all so subtle. But, you know, I told Brian that Suzuki he had printed things he'd put out like flyers that he, before the war, when he was
Mm-hmm.
very suspicious of the not suspicious, he was horrified at the military buildup in Japan. But he would, and I talked to him about this.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do? Well, and he said very little about himself, but he'd say, well, I handed people, um, I don't know what he had printed, something that said maybe Japan would be stronger if we weren't at war, just stuff like that. Uh,
Uh-huh.
Always from the point of view, and Brian does point this out, they're never concerned about the results of what they did. It's just that Japan would be better off if they
Yeah.
didn't do it. For-
Yeah. Well, it was, people who like DT Suzuki who knew, I mean, he had traveled the breadth of the United States by train,
yeah,
and had lived there for, um, 11, 12 years in the United States. He saw the industrial might of
yeah,
the country and the resources.
yeah,
So he knew that if that this, and he knew Japan, right?
yeah,
That it just, just in terms of sheer resources and availability of the kind of natural wealth,
yeah,
there was no competition. It just
right.
wasn't going to work out
Uh,
when it became a war of attrition.
yeah,
One
a
side
lot
could
of
last forever.
Japanese military people knew that too.
Yeah,
The guy who
yeah.
designed the Pearl Harbor, the guy in charge of it, knew it. And one of the things I read said he wanted after it, he wanted them to surrender, or
Mm,
not surrender, but back off.
yeah.
His idea was just one hit, but you had all these people, especially the army. It's like army versus the navy, up to actual fighting at the end to get the emperor's recording out. Uh, and the army, they were happy for everybody in Japan to die before it capitulated. But anyway, uh, I talked to people there was one guy who worked with Suzuki on the stuff he took. And to either GHQ, General Headquarters, or the Japanese who went over it. And, Brian just wants proof. And one thing that happened to Brian was, this completely unhelpful thing that Dick Baker put into the original introduction to Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, that Suzuki led a pacifist group in Japan during the war. Now,
Mm,
I got him to take that out at 2000 and some other things. He also had his birth date wrong. He had the date he came to America wrong. There were mistakes in Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. One of them was not using umon. There was some, they're all on. We have a section on Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. All that's in there. And the Russians translators were the most fastidious in what they have to say. Very interesting. But anyway, I just say what people said. I'm not like Brian.
The Russian translators of Crooked Cucumber?
No. Just when I
Of Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind?
when I made Crooked Cucumber to begin with, I just put down what people said. That's what I still do. I'm not concerned about truth the way I don't have an agenda. I just say what people said. And I try to keep myself out of it as much as possible. So he did what he could. And what they had to say, what it was like being in his temple, they called it a beacon of light in the middle of darkness. But they weren't talking about wanting Japan to be defeated. They were talking about, ending this nightmare they were going through. How can we do it? What would be a good transition? And he was very, very influenced by Nishi Nakama. And there were two Nishi Nakama brothers, and they were very, especially the one, what's sort of like his Richard Baker. He didn't have disciples. I mean, these guys were sitting with him before they went to the army. They were high school students. But they still kept meeting, including after his death. And I met with three of them for a few days. And that was really enlightening. So, Brian can do his thing. See, he called, reading that thing that Dick Baker put in the early Zen Mind Beginners now, not knowing what he was talking about. Brian called Hoitsu Suzuki up and say, "What did you do during the war?" He said, and Hoitsu, this is before he really became close to Zen Center. He said, "My father did nothing. He just buried his head in his hands." Hoitsu didn't know anything. He didn't know anything. And he had resentment.
How old was he at the time? How old would he have been during the war years? Hoitsu.
Hoitsu now, he's probably 86. And I was with him just not that long ago. And he was just, I was with him in September last year in Germany, for when Dick stepped down. He was nimble. He could hop up on the ton, and said he was in extremely good shape. And, but anyway.
So one of the things about D.T. Suzuki, he's not read that much anymore. People read about him.
Yeah.
They don't read his stuff that much, but there's some really profound and beautiful presentations of Zen, and he was really trying to explain to people without much background in Buddhism at the time, people like Salinger and John Cage and Allen Ginsberg or whomever, this woman Elizabeth Thomas, trying to explain to them what non-dualism was.
Yeah.
And trying to explain it, very discursively. He never taught Zazen. He always outsourced that to someone like Hisamatsu Shinichi.
Right.
He told Robert Aitken one time, and when they were at Hawaii, when Aitken first met him, Aitken asked, "Are you a teacher?" And D.T. Suzuki said, "I'm not a teacher, I'm a talker." And so it was all, he's always very discursive. but he felt, he with through his presence tried to teach as well. The way he presented and held himself, the way he acted around others, the way he handled himself in exchanges, however heated they might be. But he wanted to explain non-dualism, and he wanted to explain the relationship between form and emptiness. A lot of his lectures are about this. And how do you do this in words? How do you go about talking about this stuff philosophically?
Yeah.
And he felt, his feeling was, and this was starting in the 1930s, 1920s, 1930s on through the 50s into the early 60s, that was the best way to get Zen into onto the map outside Japan, was to do it intellectually like this.
Yeah.
And it was not to form an institution to bring over Zazen practice and monastic practice to the United States. That was not his thing. That was not his forte.
Well,
He would
he was
help people
right.
trying
He was
to
right.
do that.
Look at the
Yeah.
difference between how far what he did spread and what the people setting up Zendos did. I mean, at that time, he did the right thing, and Alan Watts did the right thing
Uh-huh.
at his time. Uh, and uh, yeah,
Yeah.
now you've published. What have you already published on DT Suzuki?
Well, I was the general editor of a series that University of California Press published called The Selected Works of D.T. Suzuki, that had some of the old stuff and then new stuff that had been newly translated. Or we went back, Norman Waddell retranslated some stuff he had done. And it was 4 volumes. And I edited the Zen volume, and then a number of other scholars edited the other 3 volumes on general Buddhism, on comparative religion, and on Pure Land Buddhism.
Right, because he
So,
was very big on Pure Land.
yes, and towards the end of his life, he was involved in a project to translate Shinran's masterwork, the Kyogyo Shinsho. And he didn't complete it. He died before it was completed, but he did a good chunk of it. And Japanese Jodo Shin scholars have been so impressed with or interested in the way he translated it that they've translated his English back into Japanese
Ah,
because they thought, well, there's some insight here, very unique insight into this text.
ah,
So we need to see. And so it's sort of like when you play with Google Translate or something, right?
uh,
And you ask
that's
it to say something in Japanese and then you translate it back into English. It was sort of
yeah.
like that. But yeah, no, he was very interested in Shin Buddhism, deeply so,
Oh
for
yeah,
decades. Yeah.
yeah.
And had a close relationship with people at the New York Buddhist Church when he was living in New York in the 50s,
What's the
where
New York
Hoshina,
Buddhist Church?
it's a Jodo Shin
Oh,
temple
like Buddhist churches of
on Riverside
America.
Drive. Yeah, right. They use the term church. And
Right.
it was on, I think, in the 90s on the upper, I think it was on the Upper West Side in the 90s. I can't remember if it was the east side or the west side. But anyway, they moved it to Riverside Drive in 1955. And there's a big statue of Shinran that was shipped from Hiroshima that survived the atomic bomb blast outside the church there. And he would go over there when he was at Columbia and give Friday night talks to the folks at the New York Buddhist Church.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow, wow,
yeah.
yeah, amazing. Now, all right, you got 4 volumes of that. Have
4 volumes of that. Then I did this, the new book that you Spreading Indra's Net, which
Yeah,
is this one.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, those are the Columbia lectures from 52, 53. And I have a few, articles I've published about D.T. Suzuki and philanthropists. Some interesting stories there about the people who supported him. Chevy Chase's adoptive grandfather, Cornelius Crane, paid a very wealthy American, the Crane manufacturing uh, empire out of Chicago, He was a I don't know if you ever saw the movie Witches of Eastwick with Jack Nicholson,
Oh,
and
a long time ago. I don't remember it.
the mansion in which it's filmed was the Cornelius Crane summer home in Ipswich, Massachusetts. It's now called Crane's Beach, the beach along there that they own. They donated to the state of Massachusetts. But he became Suzuki's patron. He
Mm,
was a psychiatric patient of Karen Horney, the neo-Freudian therapist, and they both got interested in Zen. And Crane's uncle had actually supported Suzuki in the 30s to come to the United States.
wow.
And then Cornelius started supporting him. And Columbia didn't pay Suzuki's salary when he was teaching there. Cornelius Crane paid Suzuki's
Ah,
salary. And he can, even though Suzuki stepped down in 1957, Cornelius Crane continued to pay Suzuki $8,000 a year until Cornelius died in 1962, and then that ended.
yeah,
Um,
there's a lot of
but
money back
anyway,
then.
so I've
Wait a
done a
minute.
few
I want to
articles.
ask something.
Yeah,
I
sure.
keep holding it and wanting to ask you.
Yes.
Um, is is there? It seems to me one thing would be good for you to do, but I don't know to what extent you've done it. Is to have selected writings of D.T. Suzuki that you think are the best for people to read. That isn't a big book,
Yeah.
you know.
I think, I actually, I don't know if they'll still honor the contract because it's so overdue, but University of California Press is supposed to do a volume like that, kind of the best of DT Suzuki, or I was going to call it the essential Suzuki, but then I thought, well, some smart ass reviewer will say nothing about DT Suzuki's essential or something like that. So I'm trying to
Well,
come up with
they don't
the,
matter.
yeah.
That
But
doesn't matter.
anyway, I do have on the slate to do something like that. And I think you're right. A shorter volume with some of what I have found to be the most profound and beautiful of his writings would
Right.
be,
Just what you think.
yeah,
I think
I
that's best.
agree. Thank you for that poke, but that's a
Yeah.
very good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll I'll keep after you on that.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So anyway, and now I'm working on the biography, and that I'm just like I say, that's going to take a few years at least for
Wow.
me to complete. And I'm
Well,
trying to write that, you know, as much as I can shed my scholarly habits. I'm trying to write it more in the vein of Crooked Cucumber than, neither Monk nor Layman or Seeking Shakyamuni,
yeah.
these
It
academic books I've done.
you see, it's hard for so many people I know to do that because you're well educated. And I'm not really well educated. I've never been a good reader. I've picked things up by osmosis, and I write at a
Uh-huh.
fifth grade level.
Mm.
Uh, and somebody who we know uh, wrote a book where he was trying to write at the more common language level.
Uh-huh.
Well, I got a program that runs through frequency of use of words.
Uh-huh.
He was using words that were just arcane or that had like 1 in 100 million, you know. And
Yeah.
I spot that right away.
Yeah.
When I read words, I think, what percentage of people are going to understand that word? And
Uh-huh.
that's, this is why George Bush and Trump uh, click with people. They speak like other people do, and
Uh-huh.
people like that. And then, you take John Kerry. Uh, when he talks, it's like an oratory style. Or
Hmm.
uh, Kamala Harris, she has a very controlled style, and she's like Hillary Clinton. They were very sincere, sort of policy wonks, really into doing a good job. But the, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
uh,
You know, one of the things I found, this is true even among scholars. I was at there's a center here in North Carolina called the North Carolina, it's called the National Humanities Center, and they give fellowships for people to work on their books. And they get 30, 40 people from around the world, scholars, mostly the United States, but a lot of, people from Taiwan, from China, from South Asia come. And I was working on the biography with the project that I was slated to do there 2 years ago. And you give these initial talks, 5 minutes, just short talk about what you're working on. And I asked how many people knew who D.T. Suzuki was. And this is an extremely well-educated group. But maybe one or two people knew who D.T. Suzuki is. So he's
amazing.
pretty much forgotten. I would think, I wonder if you asked the practitioners at Green Gulch or at the San Francisco Zen Center how many people know who D.T. Suzuki is.
I
Be
think it'd be
fairly
higher than that. It'd be higher than that.
well higher than that, but still, I wonder how many people have read his stuff
Oh,
nowadays.
then you're going low. Many,
Yeah.
many more. And, at a certain point, people were coming to the Zen Center. They read D.T. Suzuki. I had uh, training of a Zen Buddhist monk.
Hmm.
That was good. But uh, more of them had read uh, or listened to Alan Watts. He had an enormous uh, influence on people in that generation. I only read one Watts book, that Way of Zen, and I didn't remember anything from it. Uh, you know, uh, I got more
Well,
out of
I think
huh?
I was going to say, your cohort, the people who were there at the beginning of Zen Center, I think a lot of those folks were introduced to Zen by the writings of D.T. Suzuki,
Oh yeah,
probably. And in
yeah,
retrospect, I think some of Richard Baker's lectures were echoing sort of D.T. Suzuki's Zen and Japanese culture book, that sort of information about the way in which Suzuki portrays Japanese culture as being totally infused with Zen,
yeah,
that Richard talked about it in that way as
yeah,
well,
yeah,
oftentimes. And I think that's seeing Japanese culture through D.T. Suzuki's eyes in a way. I mean,
yeah,
there's some problems with that, but it certainly carried over into our understanding of the relationship between Japanese culture and Zen to a large
yeah.
degree.
My impression, and it's not educated, it's just living there, was that Shinto was the big thing to them, uh, not Buddhism, and
Uh-huh.
that like people would. We had English classes in our home. We learned we couldn't burn incense. They didn't like it. Ooh,
Uh-huh.
they can, first time. Oh, what's that smell? Why are you burning incense? They associate it with death.
Yeah, yeah. Right, a funeral. Yeah, for a lot of people or
Yeah,
memorial service.
yeah. They,
Sure.
what I found is they don't like Buddhism. They like Shinto.
Uh-huh.
Weddings,
Yeah.
births, everything positive. But
Yeah. Well,
that's a little
yeah,
extreme.
yes.
I mean, that's, it wasn't quite like that. And
Yeah.
the temple that I lived next door to, where Shoto Harada taught
Uh-huh.
at Sogenshi, there'd be, on Sundays, it could be up to 100 lay people coming to sit zazen. Uh,
Hmm.
and uh, he really didn't distinguish between, in terms of teaching, between monks and lay people. But very open-minded for a Rinzai teacher, I thought.
Uh-huh.
I mean, from what I
Yeah.
heard, he's the only one I knew.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. How long were you there at
uh,
practicing?
4 years, three and a
Uh-huh.
half years. It was great, and he's still going. My God, I just so I just somebody Elizabeth Sawyer just sent me a video with him talking and Chisan translating, and she's been doing that for
Yeah.
forever. Uh,
I remember she came to Tassajara when we were there with Taitsukono Roshi.
I don't remember that.
Priscilla, right?
Yeah,
Priscilla is that she's yeah,
Priscilla
yeah,
Straunt. She's
yeah.
wonderful. Uh, can you uh, can you write me something about that? Just the basic details. What year?
About her coming to Tassajara with Taitsukono.
Yeah.
I'll try to remember what year it was. Yeah, it was, Elaine and I were there 81, 82, 83. I think, yeah, in those 3 years. And it was in that period. He came and she came and translated for him. He gave a lecture, a Teisho.
Oh, really?
Uh,
Really?
yeah,
I had no
yeah.
idea. Well, that's beyond.
Dick
I.
probably has a better memory of that, if you asked Dick about it. But I'll try to.
Maybe. Uh,
Thich
uh,
Nhat Hanh came when we were there too,
yeah.
to Tassajara.
Uh, well.
And he wreaked havoc there when he came, Thich Nhat
Oh, tell me.
Hanh. Well, I was the Tenzo, and he had this. It was just the sort of the beginnings of emphasizing mindfulness. He wrote that book, The Miracle of Mindfulness,
Yeah.
and this was not Japanese style Zen, right? This was Vietnamese style. Although my understanding is that actually he changed his understanding of how to present Zen. He was influenced by D.T. Suzuki's writings, believe
Is
it or
that
not.
right?
Yeah, that he was in the United States and saw what D.T. Suzuki, the way he was talking about Zen, and it changed Thich Nhat Hanh's approach to thinking about Vietnamese Zen. But anyway, so he came and, one thing he was telling people was, you need to get more sleep. You all are exhausted. You need more sleep,
That's
right? So
true.
it goes against the Zen Center culture of, you know, working yourself down to nothing,
Right.
through exhaustion. And then, this understanding we had and the way they practice at Eiheiji and places like that, where everything you do with vigor and as fast as you can. And he comes into the kitchen and he tells everybody, you need to slow down and be really mindful.
Right.
So I remember someone in the kitchen working with me then, standing there, and you say, I need a gallon of carrots. And the person is cutting the carrots like this because they
Yeah.
slowed down to snail's pace because they're being mindful. And I had hair at the time and I wanted to tear it out because I thought,
Yeah.
this is crazy. We're never going to get the meal to the Zendo.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Thich Nhat Hanh.
Yeah. I had to deal with that a lot, running the dining room uh, at Greens. I was the host at Greens. There'd be somebody new come to Zen Center, and I'd just
I
go
was
up.
there in the heyday when you were hosting, when people were begging you for a table at lunch,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
always full, always full. Uh,
yeah,
and I'd go up to a new student who was there. I said, don't try to be Zen. Do this as fast as you can. And still be neat, have everything neat and
yeah,
orderly. But forget about Zen. We've got to do everything fast here. Uh, and in
yeah.
the dining room, dealing with the fast, slow thing, I, I did from when I was at Tassajara. Incidentally, the first time Thich Nhat Hanh came to Tassajara was in 1967, our first year. Uh, and he came with Jim Forrest, who was head of the Catholic Peace something. And that's what Diane Goldschlag, now Daya,
Mm,
she came out of that.
yeah.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
and then Dr. Winter, who was Tassajara's free, wonderful doctor for many years, uh, he he hosted Thich Nhat Hanh that year, '67, in his home
Mm,
to give a talk.
uh-huh.
And if you went into his office, he had a whole row of Thich Nhat Hanh's book, Lotus of a Sea of Fire, and he'd give a
Mm.
copy to every one of his patients.
Ah,
So there was some awareness, but not like later
uh-huh.
of
Yeah.
him at the Zen Center because
Yeah.
we had
Yeah. No,
so
he just
many
kind of.
people coming in.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
then, Therese Fitzgerald and Arnie Kotler
Oh,
became disciples of his. Yeah.
well, I'm very familiar with that whole story, uh,
Yeah.
and that does not have a happy ending.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I know he had parallax press pulled out from under him.
That's right.
Arnie did. Yeah. Yeah. They
Yeah, it was
pushed him
taken
out. Yeah.
from him. Uh,
Yeah.
Michael Katz said it was they used the Blues Brothers uh, uh, motto, modus operandus. We're on a mission from God. We can do anything we want. Right. Uh,
Speaking of Michael Katz, are you in touch with him? How's he
oh,
doing?
he, he's he's the person I'm closest to.
Our daughter lives in Truckee now.
Uh-huh.
So we were out visiting her and we drove over to see Michael in Nevada City. I was just going to ask in terms you said that, you read at I don't know what level you said it was, but a low level, etc. And you write just kind of the way you talk very naturally.
No, I read at a high level. I have to. I do it all the time. I write at a fifth grade level. That's very different. No, I didn't say I read at a fifth grade level. I said I write at a fifth grade level. I can read at a very high level, and I have to all the time.
How much editing help did you get from Michael in writing Crooked Cucumber?
Um,
How did he do much
oh, yeah.
hands-on stuff?
Here's how it went, and this is true for Thank You and Okay and Crooked Cucumber. I'd write things. It came out of letters I was sending 12 people making photocopies from Japan. And he said, hey, these are great. They could be a book.
Uh-huh.
And he said,
Uh-huh.
just send us your letters and Jane and I'll put it together into a book. But from
Uh,
that point, I took over. And
mm,
I'd show Elin. Now, Elin was very important. Elin Schweiker, she's a
mm.
great reader. She could have been an editor for, a very top editor. She'd read things, but general comments, right? This is
Mhm.
awful. She was
Uh,
brutal. This is awful. Nobody's going to want to read this. Is so boring, right? And I go, well, let me work on it. No, it's hopeless. And I work on it, and finally, like after one or two tries, you go, oh, okay, this is all right. That sort of level. And then I
uh-huh.
send it to Michael, and he was more like on that level too. This is good. We can use this. He
Mhm.
would have some uh, particulars he'd mention, but it was like that. And no, I have many people help me with it.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and but it was basically it was always my voice. I wouldn't work with anybody that changed that. And
Uh-huh.
good editors are not creative. They're not trying to rewrite things for you. They're just trying. Linda Hess is amazing. After
Mm.
everybody had helped me, Linda Hess would take a paragraph and reduce its size by, you know, 10% down or
Uh,
20% down. She saw everything that didn't need to be there. And I still use that when I go over things. I know what can be cut. That's the most important thing. What can be cut?
uh-huh.
And you're still saying the same thing.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, he was very important, uh, and but he's the one who said you should write. We'll make it into a book. He bought me a laptop. He sent me software. He sent me a typing tutor. I knew how to type, but he wanted me to be able to type in the dark before I started getting it down. And then everything I've done, it's his suggested, not the stuff outside of Zen, and there's been a lot of that, but doing podcasts, that was his idea. Doing audiobooks, that was his idea. I go, oh, okay, I'll try that. And then early on, he critiqued them. The first one he said, "Oh, I was wrong. This is no good." And then the next one he said, "Wow, you turned that around quick." He's been extremely important, and also my main financial supporter because we live on donations. There's no me without him. Him, Suzuki, Baker, and Katz. Without them, I'm on Market Street living in a cardboard box.
So Dick provides some support too, or the Zen Center there, or
No, they they fly me there. I don't need to bring it. Sent. I do bring a little money, but I saved money going there. And very supportive, very warm, very normal people, no stink of Zen.
So, well, listen, I'm not going to stay on much longer, but I have one very fond memory of when you were Tenzo in City Center. You were Tenzo there for a while, right? Back in when was that?
I was head cook Tenzo, 1987.
Yeah. And I remember coming into the kitchen and you had trays of cookies. And I said, oh, you better watch those. Someone's going to take the cookies, which was always an issue, right? At Tassajara, people stealing cookies. And you said, oh, no. I said, I make extra so people can take as much as they want.
Oh, really? Oh, I don't remember that.
And I thought, oh, that's the right approach. That's taking a problem and making it the solution.
I had a sign up that said, do not practice idiot compassion, kill cockroaches, chop vegetables. I had some signs up. Well, look, I'll keep going as long as you want, but
do you have more questions for me, or?
Yeah, this one thing comes to mind. Was that your first book about priest and lay?
Yeah, neither monk nor layman was my first book, based on my dissertation, my PhD dissertation. Yeah.
Would you talk about that and maybe people's ideas of? I mean, Suzuki was neither monk nor lay. But he had no firm position on anything. He'd be on the other side, but basically, I'd say that was the important thrust. And if you look at the Harada Yasutani lineage, it really emphasizes lay teaching. Seems to me like a practice moving into a lay focus is rather recent. And if you could just tell, what it was like in Japan, how it evolved, and how you see it in America.
Well, the impetus to write that book really flowed out of my time at Zen Center, because I was lay ordained in New York before I came to Zen Center.
Where?
The New York, what was it called? The New York Zendo. It was a small Soto place on the Upper West Side run by Kondo Nakajima.
Oh, Nakajima. I don't know that. Oh, yeah, I've heard of it.
New York, I think it was called the New York Zendo, maybe. or and actually, I don't know if you remember Nick Charles
Yeah.
from Greenville. He was with Louise
Oh, of
after Louise
course.
and
They're
Dan
still
broke up. Yeah.
together.
Well, Nick and I went and I sat my first sesshin at this Zendo with Nick. We were at Lindisfarne, the Lindisfarne Association, and I got
Oh, that's
ordained.
where Michael came out of.
Yes, that's where I met Michael. I've known Michael since 1974 or so, 1975. And I met Reb and Dan at Lindisfarne.
Yeah, I met him at Linda's farm.
Uh,
That's where,
Michael?
yeah, that's where he and
Yeah.
I first bonded.
So anyway, I was ordained there, and then I came out to San Francisco and was at the Zen Center. And the whole time I was at Zen Center, I was like a lot of people. I was a very avid, overly serious kind of practitioner. And but I was always puzzled that by the priest ordination because people would get ordained as priests, but they were living basically, except for the robes, exactly like everyone else.
I used to say that at the Zen Center, the priests get married and live like laymen, and the lay people live like monks.
Yeah. So it was puzzling. And then in Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, towards the end, Suzuki Roshi says, here in America, you will be neither monk, priest, nor layman, and that will be difficulty for you. And he goes on. And when I was a graduate student at Yale, I kept pondering this, and then I went off to Japan on a Fulbright, and I was going to work on something else, but I was just in the library at Komazawa University and was looking at some old books of monastic rules, the rules for the Soto school. And there was one book that was from like 1920 or something, or maybe a little earlier than that. I can't remember the exact date, that said that the Soto clergy weren't supposed to get married. But I knew that even when that was printed, a lot of Soto clergy were married. I mean, Suzuki Roshi was born as part of this decriminalization. So I started asking people about, well, when did the Soto school allow people to get married? And I got a lot of different answers, but nobody really seemed to have an exact understanding of how that came about. And so I started looking into it. And it turned out that in 1872, the Japanese government decriminalized marriage for the clergy. They would no longer exile or execute
Ha!
Buddhists who were living with a woman or had children. Because in the Edo period, sometimes they would exile people who broke this law. It was it was a shogunal law and then a national law for a time, short time. And once they decriminalized it, very many of the Buddhist clergy married. And I think it was by the 1930s, and again, I'd have to go back and look at my own book because it was published in 2001. It was a while ago. But by the 1930s or so, something like 80% of Soto clergy were married. And the nuns also were allowed to marry, but very, very few of them did.
Yeah,
It shows because, and what happened was, as a result of this the open marriage, the temples, although formally they don't belong to a family,
right.
more often than not, the eldest son or a son takes over the temple. Now, some daughters do as well. Or someone comes and marries in and is adopted into the family to take over the temple. And it's as if it's kind of a family temple, although really it isn't. It does not belong to the family, it's not their property. But the son will take over and then their son. And so for generations, a temple will stay within having the same family as the
Right.
incumbent. So anyway, that one of the things I found in the book was, or one of the conclusions I reached, although this is the fact, and the Soto school accepts this. All Buddhist schools accept the prevalence of marriage among the clergy. They continue to hold up as the ideal the monastic life. And so Eiheiji, the life at Eiheiji is seen as this is the true Zen life.
Right. Their wives don't go
Everything
there.
else is kind of, we do this, and this is an accommodation for the world, and we do this for a variety of reasons. And you can practice fully in that context. But in terms of their form, they still shave their head, they still wear robes. And if you're going to rise through the ranks in the Soto school, you need to go to one of these training temples and live monastic life. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing is true at Zen Center, that people idealize this kind of celibate monastic life without the celibacy, but they honor that sort of rigorous kind of practice, even though it's no longer unmarried life.
Yeah.
But that remains the kind of ideal form of practice, the image of what Zen practice should be,
Yeah.
I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where and I think they may have changed it more recently, but up until very recently, when people took the vows, we changed it in the United States. But when people would take the clerical ordination vows, you would say, I will not have sex. We changed that in the United States and used the lay version, which is I won't be promiscuous, or, now they say misuse the senses or something
Right.
like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's sort of, in a nutshell, kind of what happened with the book, and I dug down deep into the documents and saw one of the great Soto teachers, Kishizawa Eon's teacher, and Kishizawa,
Sure.
was
Yeah.
one of the main guys for Shunryu, right?
Oh, yeah. He called him
Uh,
his teacher. He said his understanding came from Kishizawa, and
yeah,
his practice or whatever came from Gyokju and so on.
yeah. And so, Jiryu actually wrote about Nishiari in his master's thesis.
Oh,
Jiryu, yeah, he got an MA at Berkeley and wrote about Nishiari Bokusan. Nishiari argued vehemently against allowing the clergy to marry.
oh, and they held him. They all did. They held him up as just their great ancestor. That
Yeah,
all the modern, but you might know there's exceptions. Well-known Soto teachers trace their lineage back to him.
yeah,
And
yeah.
another
So,
one, what Oka Sotan or
yes, yeah. And so Nishiari, he was adamant that this is just the destruction of Buddhism if clerics can marry. And the other thing was they didn't have to keep the tonsure anymore. They could, if they want, grow their hair out a little bit. If they weren't doing a ceremony, they could wear regular clothing. And there was one very conservative Jodo, the curse word in Japanese, to call someone a baka, right? That's horrible. Baka, that, right?
yeah. Well, I
Well,
I
the
vaguely remember it. Huh?
characters are horse and deer combined, and it's
Oh,
a Japanization, a Sino-Japanization of moha, ignorance, the Sanskrit word moha for ignorance. It becomes baka, and it really is. You call someone a baka in Japan, and that's like fighting words. That's very severe kind of uh, pejorative expression, negative
doesn't
expression.
baka mean stupid?
Yes, it means stupid, but it's worse than that. It's not,
Yeah.
you don't like to call someone stupid in the United States, but it's uber, it's like saying
Right.
fuck you,
Right.
basically.
Right.
It's
There's
that kind of,
some
the-
words in Japanese have much more power. You got to be careful. You don't use
yeah.
the
I
word
mean,
"eta."
when you see someone get really mad, like on the street or something, there's a car accident or something like that, and you hear somebody say baka, or I saw a guy almost get hit by a car or a bicycle, and he was, you baka, that's that kind of uh, very nasty. Anyway, there was a Jodo priest, very conservative, who was opposed to clerical marriage. And the characters for Baka, it's written with horse and deer, the character for horse and deer. And he says, someone who tells me, points to somebody who's married, eats meat. That was the other thing. The Meiji government allowed the clergy to openly eat meat.
Right.
Someone who points to a cleric, a monk, who eats meat, is married, grows his hair out, and doesn't wear his robes, is as stupid as a baka, like somebody who points to a horse and says it's a deer, or points to the tree and tells me I will find fish there.
Right.
That's how outrageous this was. This is like the late 19th century
Yeah.
where they're opposed to this, and that just withers away. But like I say, I think the main point is that even though that's gone, this notion that the kind of monastic life of the early Sangha, the celibate monastic life, is ideal. And I don't know if Harada, your teacher, Harada Shodo, he's not married, is he?
Oh, no.
Yeah, the Rinzai training temple heads, many of them, some, it's not entirely true anymore, but most of them still are not married. I think to head
Right.
one of the
That's what I found.
training
I
temples.
knew a married Rinzai priest, and he had to teach school. His temple was one beautiful temple, and but I said to him once, "Oh no, wait a minute, he was Soto."
Hmm.
Right. Never mind. I
Okay.
can't
Yeah.
think of a Rinzai priest who was
Yeah.
married.
There are a few who are married, but I think the main sort of Honzan, the head temples, the training temples, like someone like Yamada Mumon,
Yeah.
Harada, they usually are not married in Rinzai to this day. But that's one of the few exceptions,
Yeah.
to this, where
Yeah.
they have that honor that unmarried ideal.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
but Soto school for almost all, Hoitsu was out there at Eiheiji as the Godo, and he's married, and
but his wife
many of them.
isn't there at AAG.
No, she's not. That's
Yeah.
right.
And he's still, well, I don't know about now, but I think actually very recently, maybe last year, he said he was still going to Okayama Prefecture, Okayama Ken, and
Uh-huh.
like leading a sesshin with a monastic Soto group. I really didn't
Mm,
know anything about it except from him, even though I lived there. Uh,
mm.
uh, yeah, his the his, and I only know him in his lay life at
Oh,
Rinsoin, and his
yeah.
very lay life. He had a
Uh-huh.
definite drinking problem, uh,
Mm,
and I've seen every kid there be furious at him for his conduct when he was drinking, but that was earlier.
uh-huh.
Chitose said he became a good boy eventually, but not completely. And
Uh-huh.
he was trying to, I haven't had a drink in 21 years. Uh,
Mm,
when I was there with Katrinka, oh, 11 years ago, uh, he was trying to get me to drink. He couldn't believe I wouldn't drink anything
ah,
from our past.
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, all
Yeah.
right. Well, I've got a question about this. Um, that I get to in Crooked Cucumber, I get into the fact that his Suzuki's master, he called Kishizawa his teacher, and Goju
Uh-huh.
and so on his master. And sometimes you get them
Hmm.
mixed up, but
Mm,
uh, uh, that's the way he saw it. His master was very, very strict. Never said a nice thing to him. Always putting him down.
mm,
Uh, and was seen as a priest, as a priest should be by people. And he had an adulterous lover.
Hmm.
He had his lover, and then she ended up moving into Rinso with him when he took it over after her husband had died. But she had to keep a very, very low profile.
Yeah.
But Suzuki, like when he'd go back from America, he'd go to
Hmm.
her grave, so to speak, her ashes site, and make an offering. She was an important person for him.
So
Uh,
Suzuki had a relationship with this woman, but they kept it sort
well,
of
don't,
covert.
don't say Suzuki. I mean, Yokozu and so on had a relationship.
Oh, Gyokuji and so on.
He
Okay,
was
had this.
Suzuki
So
too, incidentally.
yeah.
He was Suzuki's
Oh,
stepbrother,
okay.
older
So
stepbrother.
that was early enough. The Soto school still even though the government decriminalized marriage, the Soto school prohibited it.
Ah,
And they did that for a number of decades after it was decriminalized.
yeah,
So, and one of the things that forced them to change that policy was a lot of people had relationships like this that were covert, that were hidden,
yeah,
and oftentimes they would have a kid who would be their quote unquote disciple, particularly a boy, right? It's my
right,
disciple. It's actually their blood son. And if the the Zen cleric died, the woman had absolutely no right to be in the temple.
yeah,
And she and her children would be thrown out. And this became a real social issue problem for the Soto school and other Buddhist schools, that there were these women who had no claim on the temple, no way to support themselves, being thrown out of the temples with their children when their husband died prematurely.
yeah,
And so as for that put pressure on them to say, okay, you can marry, you can be in the temple. But to this day, I'm very close with some temple families. And in public, the wife doesn't call her husband by his first name or husband or sweetie. It's Hojo-san,
that's right. And that's what Mitsu always called Suzuki.
Hojo-san, and that is a holdover from this rejection of clerical marriage by the school, by Buddhism. That they're not. It's not my husband. He's the head of the temple, and
Right,
I'm just here helping. He's
right.
Hojo-san. Yeah.
So I think of Hojo's son as the head of the temple. Uh, but if you're outside of the temple, you still call him Hojo-san?
Yeah, in public, yes.
Yeah.
Or they, yeah. In fact, I have this is an interesting story. So, someone I know, he's married, he's got kids, Soto cleric, and his son got ordained, and his son is going to take over the temple. And we went out to dinner one night, and we got there first. His wife and he and I were at a sushi restaurant, sitting at the sushi counter, and his son comes in, and all of a sudden there's this heated exchange between him and his son. His son is like in his 30s, a heated exchange, and I couldn't even catch what was going on because they were talking so fast in this,
Yeah.
very informal Japanese. I'm like, what's going on? His wife is just sitting there like this, and his son gets up and leaves. He had come late from work and then he leaves. And the next day or a day later, 2 days later, I was talking to the son. I said, what in the world happened? Why'd you fight with your father? And he said, I showed up at the sushi bar wearing my wedding ring.
Ah,
And my father said to me, you should not be wearing a wedding ring. You're a priest.
wow.
Even though it's his son, they're married. His son is married.
Wow. That's good.
You
That's
you
a good
shouldn't
story.
have this kind of outward expression of not being a monk.
Yeah.
right? This is sort of flies in the face. You're
Yeah.
a monk, but you're wearing a wedding ring. So
Right.
um, it shows you the kind of contradictions that are still there. And this is just a couple of years ago this happened, so it's still going on, this kind of tension. And
Wow.
we've in the United States, I think American Buddhism and European Buddhism has been much more open because, Tassajara, it's a co-ed practice
Do
and
you know
people don't
why?
have to be celibate.
Dick
What?
Baker.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. He just told
Uh-huh.
Suzuki, no women, no Tatsahara.
Uh-huh.
Uh, he was really good about all this. Suzuki wasn't.
Uh-huh.
He didn't know what to
Uh-huh.
do. I mean, he accepted there were men and women together, but the early, the first women to have babies, Tassara, excluding Ruthie Disco, who handled it beautifully with Paul, very supportive, and both Silas and Dan were like, I'm practicing, you're a mother, that Japanese model, and
Mm.
it did not work well at
Uh-huh.
all. Um, and
So Johanna was born at Tassajara, Dan's
no,
daughter?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying having giving birth, well, having an infant,
Uh,
having a baby in
uh-huh.
this and that. And
Uh-huh.
Silas would just say, Silas, I mean, Kathy went into a mental institution. She had a
Uh,
nervous breakdown. Uh,
mm.
but she didn't know, I mean, Ruthie just kept working, just kept her baby on her. Paul would help. So they
Uh,
didn't pay any attention to that, uh, you know. But it was a
mhm.
problem at first, and Suzuki didn't know what to do. But,
Mm.
and, Mitsu would, uh, that's all she knew. That's all he knew was
Uh-huh.
that the wife takes care of the child, the husband practices, does the
Hmm.
priestly thing. Well,
Yeah.
that sort of started disappearing while Suzuki was alive. But once Dick came in, that was gone. That was
Uh-huh.
he was very supportive of children and babies and families and all that. And that he set the tone for a more American way of dealing with it that worked, you know. Uh,
Uh-huh.
uh, well, anyway, all right.
Yeah.
Now, there was a term, it's in Crooked Cucumber, but I forget it, for the live in. It was one of the gods. Uh,
Mm.
what, one of the Shinto gods,
Daikoku.
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 Right. I
Yeah, they
kept
would call
saying in my
that's one of
mind Daiko, but that means
yeah.
substitute. I think of Daiko Unten, right? The substitute driver.
Ah,
I went, no, that's not it. What is it? Yeah, Daikoku. So
yeah.
explain that.
So that's the kitchen god, the god of the kitchen. And so the woman doing the cooking and everything is the Daikoku of the temple. And it's like calling him, you don't call her your wife, Tsuma, or Shufu, housewife, or anything like that, or Oksan. Well, Oksan you would use, the one in the back. But Daikoku is a kind of euphemism, a way of talking about the wife without calling her a wife,
Yeah.
the Daikoku. Yeah.
So how far back? I got the impression that Daiko, I mean, there was a Daikoku at the turn of the century.
Yeah, it goes back quite a ways. And this kind of covert marriage, this hidden marriage, goes back well into the early modern period, but it goes back to the medieval period.
Uh
There are
huh.
whole lineages in the Tendai school that were passed on from father to son, this kind of uh, but they never openly acknowledged that there was marriage.
Yeah.
And this went on through the Edo period and became more and more prevalent. And then, of course, Jodo Shinshu from the beginning through Pure Land Buddhism, Shinran school always could marry.
Yes.
So there was that, and
Oh,
that's a
that was his
large
point.
school.
You can marry, you can eat
Yeah,
meat.
that's right. There's no, the vows, the precepts, following the precepts are not going to get you to complete awakening. There's no way you can lift yourself up by the bootstraps. You have to depend on the compassion of Amida to get you to the Pure Land and acknowledge your fundamental uh, flawed nature, how flawed, deeply flawed you are, and
Yeah,
unable to do things without egoistic calculation.
right. Well, Suzuki had an attitude sort of like that. He thought that literally following the precepts was like heresy.
Mm.
You know, that's
Uh-huh.
I'm quoting Mill, uh, but uh, he's got so much on precepts, uh, and you know, it, just his understanding of them and the spirit of them. He was really into the spirit of it. Uh, and anyway,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, mm, mm.
So, well, listen, it's 10 o'clock p.m. here, so I'm gonna sign off.
Yeah,
And
you were wrong. It's not 3 hours difference. It's four. Unless you said four, and I got confused.
no, no, it's 10 here, and what time is it by you? 10
Oh,
in the
it'd be
morning?
11.
11. Okay, so you're 13 hours ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Because
What
yet,
day is it? Is it Sunday morning by you?
yeah. Yesterday
Okay.
I had an 8 a.m. talk here and an
Uh-huh.
8 p.m. talk in Canada. Oh,
Uh-huh.
further, an earlier time zone. And I talked to
Yeah.
Bob. I did a talk with Bob Halpern recently.
Oh,
Same thing. Yeah.
what's
And
Bob up to?
yesterday I talked to June Omura, who was at Tassajara in the Suzuki days. June Omura Crow in
Oh,
Halifax. So that was another
mm,
8 a.m.
oh,
Uh,
oh.
9 a.m. is much better for me.
So Bob Halperin didn't he, is he with, he was with Trungpa, right? Did he go off and study with Trungpa or?
I never stopped. He's
Uh-huh.
he's
So is he a teacher in that lineage or?
no, well, he leads for God 15 years or 20 years he's been leading the the but he doesn't say it that way. He opens the meditation hall and
Hmm.
in the morning and he opens it in the evening and he's always there
Uh-huh.
and uh, he had some pretty rough years and he's uh, you know been very very diligent and people really respect him
Hmm.
uh, and he's been doing that in Halifax. Leads a very very simple life, uh, and yeah, and yeah, he's doing good. He's 82, I think.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and
Yeah.
all right, real quick, I want to ask you, where were you born?
I was born in Chicago at Edgewater Hospital, which is no longer there, near the lake, near Lake Michigan.
Uh, hey,
Uh-huh.
I was born in Tarrant Tarrant Hospital in Fort Worth,
Ah,
and my mother lived to be 98 and a half,
ah,
and she was pretty much completely healthy until the last few months. And she was a week in Tarrant Hospital there, and I just would stay with her, even sleep there sometimes. The last few months, I was just with her all day, every day.
ah,
I'd work.
uh-huh.
I'd work.
Mm,
She stopped
yeah.
eating. I'd eat her food, uh,
Ah,
and but where she was only in Tarrant for maybe a week,
well,
maybe
that's nice.
5 days. Uh,
That's a
well,
good
she
way
went
to.
to a convalescent home.
Uh-huh.
that was walking distance from our home and
Mm.
through a nice woods with a Starbucks not far out
Uh,
of the way. It was a mile to the Starbucks. Then I'd go
uh-huh.
there and I'd be like 12 hours with her and
Mm.
I'd work. And
How long was she in the convalescent home before she passed away?
see now, January, February. She died March 8th. And it her her downfall started one particular day. I'd been over at Ruben Abito's place in Dallas
Uh-huh.
for their year-end party. It was
Mm.
January 13th, maybe. And I came
Uh-huh.
home and she was on the floor. She couldn't get up. And
Uh,
and then that's when she went to Tarrant first. But in the where she was the old wing. It's where I was born when
mm.
she was. I thought that was so cool. Uh,
Yeah.
but she had a there. I have the record of her demise on Kook.com under Adele HDL. It was inspiring. She just stopped eating, and I
Uh,
got hospice involved. And we had to
mm.
meet with the staff at the convalescent home and
Uh,
explain. No, she doesn't want to eat. That's good. She's dying of failure to thrive, what they
uh-huh.
called it. And toward the end, she stopped drinking, and
Mm.
that went on like 8 9 days. That's
Mm.
that's as I was with Claude when he died. He went about 5 days
Mm.
uh, when he
Uh-huh.
stopped water. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, it's amazing. Um, anyway, all right.
Okay.
So you were born there,
Yeah.
and then uh, I just want to know what was the trajectory from there, and when were you first interested in Buddhism, or when did you first get any idea that hey, things aren't the way people say they are, or whatever.
Well, when I started smoking pot in high school, that helped
Oh,
some.
definitely.
But at summer camp, actually, when I was 16, a counselor gave me one of uh, this junior counselor that, she must have been 18, 19, gave me a copy of one of D.T. Suzuki's books to look at.
Oh my
And I had
gosh.
brought with me Huxley's The Doors of Perception. So I was looking at that kind of stuff.
Oh,
And I couldn't make head nor tail of D.T. Suzuki's book. I mean, it was just impossible. It was this little paperback that William Barrett had put together of his writings. And I went off to the University of Michigan. And in my second year at the University of Michigan, Philip Kaplow came and did a 2-day introduction to Zen workshop, which he was doing. The Rochester Zen Center was founded in 1966, and he would go around. This was 1973, and he was going around to various college campuses giving introductions to Zen. And I was fascinated by his introduction and my inability to sit still for more than 3 minutes. I mean, literally, I could not sit still. And I couldn't figure out what the hell was wrong with me that I couldn't sit still. And there was a satellite group of Rochester Zen Center in Ann Arbor. And I started going over there in the mornings and sitting Zazen. And then I dropped out and moved to the Lindisfarne Association in Southampton
oh wow.
and did that session in New York with Nick Charles, who also was at Lindisfarne. And then met Dan and Reb. Reb came and for a month with Rusa. Dan came with Louise and Johanna. And then Dick Baker came for a couple of weeks, a week or 10 days. I met all of them and decided to move out to San Francisco.
Ah,
And moved out to San Francisco in 76 and started practicing at the Zen Center. But the woman I moved out there with, it was not to her liking. And we were living together, and I sort of drifted away and went back to school and got my BA at SF State with Jerry Needleman, Jacob
oh
Needleman.
sure.
Yeah, Jerry was my advisor at SF State. And when I graduated, I'd split up with my girlfriend, and I came back to live at Green Gulch and then City Center in Tassajara. So that was,
Ah,
and then I
yeah.
went off to graduate school, and but so basically, I've been doing Buddhism since I was about 18, 19 years
Well,
old. I mean,
16.
been this,
I put it at
yeah,
16.
yeah, 16. This has been my, you know, sort of a central focus of my life, and I've been
Yeah,
fortunate that I've been able to make my living teaching this stuff to
yeah,
18 to 22-year-olds for
yeah,
30 years. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I've actually made a living
Yeah.
doing what I do, but it's been, well, Crooked Cucumber and the first to Shine One Corner of the World, which is now Zen is right here. I got a lot of
Mm.
money for them. So
Uh-huh.
they supported me for 10 years. But actually, to be able to finish it, it was Michael Katz. Uh, and uh, and then other people, and starting at about 2000, I started doing fundraising, and but not much, just sending
Uh-huh.
out one email or one early on it was a letter, uh, and a year or something. Yeah, and enough to get by. Uh,
And
yeah.
how did you end up at Tassajara or at Zen Center with Suzuki Roshi?
Oh,
Is
well,
that,
it's
that's probably up on cuke.com so I can read
it's
it.
in Crooked Cucumber a little bit, but
Uh-huh.
Tatsar Stories was published this last September.
Yeah. You sent Elaine a copy, actually. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but
Far out, really?
yeah. Yeah, you sent Elaine a copy for some reason. She made a donation or something.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that was the fundraiser came out. For,
Yeah.
you make a donation. Yeah, I uh, yeah I sent out. That was I don't know how many came from that 40 copies or something
Uh-huh.
at $125 each. But other
Mm.
people would give more. Some people, would I that helped a lot. Uh,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Oh, interesting. Well, that tells you.
Okay. I'll
What's
take a
in
look at it.
Crooked Cube, what's in Tassar's stories. They tell you how I got there, and it's true.
Well, week after next, we're reading Crooked Cucumber with the six graduate PhD actually, they're master's students, and I'll be reading that. Uh, so
Yeah.
hopefully you'll get a few sales out of that too. I assigned the book, so
Oh, that's
uh,
good. Hey,
yeah.
when we studied Kanze's Buddhist wisdom books, the Heart and Dharma
Uh-huh.
Sutra,
Yeah.
photocopies
Uh-huh.
at Tassara. And I point that out in Tassara's stories now shameful that,
Uh-huh.
well, I I don't say it was shameful, but it's pretty clear it's not
Uh-huh.
good. Herb Gold told me he, did a class at Esalen. No, at 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 not Esalen. What was the group up in Marshall that got into so much trouble? Uh, that you know,
Was it Esther?
no, bigger
Oh,
trouble than that. Big trouble.
oh, oh.
Uh,
Rajneesh, that group, or
no. It was up in Marshall. It was like
uh,
it was founded for criminals and ex-drug
oh,
addicts. Uh,
oh,
uh, and became very
Synanon, or what's the name?
Synanon. That sounds
Yeah.
right. Uh,
Okay.
so he went up there to do a class in Marshall, and it was all photocopies. He thought, "Oh,
Hmm.
great! They're all going to have a copy of my book." That's what he was told. But yeah, ha ha ha. Mm. So
Well, the students, I have to say, they can find a PDF of almost anything I assign. And I always tell them,
Sure.
well, you're not giving the author their due. This is how people make a living, yada, yada, yada. But they can find it like that
Well, I have my
on
books
some
on Kook.
Russian website or,
Yeah, no, I have my books on Kook.com.
yeah.
Not the new one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Crooked Cucumber, and it's second edition. And you really should know. Just look at the changes. For the
Okay.
stories are retold. Uh, there were uh, there was an important mistake I made in it, saying that I asked when the visiting Roshis came in '68, Yasutani Soen mainly, when they came, uh, there was a question asked. Each of them gave a little talk. Uh, and well, anyway, this particular meeting with them, they were there a few days. Uh, Dick said, "You have this opportunity with these great teachers to ask a question." And in Crooked Cucumber, first edition, it says, "I asked the question." It wasn't me, it was Les K. And
Mm,
Les pointed that out. Why did I say it was me? I was told that.
mm,
I didn't remember asking it, but said, "Oh, yeah, you asked this question." And then, you know, Yasutani gives a serious answer. Someone gives a serious answer, and Suzuki just says, "I have nothing to say," and walks out.
mm.
Uh, so that is corrected. And I've also corrected it in Zen right now. Uh, and, you know, uh, yeah, that was bad. Also, it says it was me who went to Suzuki and said, "I'm having trouble eating too much in the kitchen. What should I do?" And he pulls out some jelly beans and says, "Have a jelly bean." Well, I said it was me because a guy told me uh, that he always remembers that story, and it was me. But it wasn't. It was Bob Halpern. And then when I thought about it, I thought I never would have done that. I wouldn't have confessed. Bob would do things like that just so he could spend time with Suzuki, you know. And Suzuki realized that, you know, he knew it wasn't a real question. Oh, Fred
Uh-huh.
Stober went to Suzuki for Doksan, and he had no question. So he said, he just made something up and asked it. And Suzuki looked at him and went, "I have some letters here. Would you mail them for me?" uh, yeah, and the noodle story is retold some, but in Tassahara Stories 2, which goes 68 through 71, I tell the noodle story completely from Janet Sturgeon's point of view. The
Mm,
Crooked Cucumber had it from other people's point, and that some of them are from different points of view. There are a few names changes. I use the real names in a few cases, uh, but like I said, there's all the you can see what the corrections are if you just want to see them. They're there. Just go to Cuke.com and hit any number of things. DC, you can go books by DC, books by and about Shunryu Suzuki. You can go to publications. It's hard. And
okay.
I use I use Cook.com when I'm looking into things. I just go to the site search box and
Hmm.
and write a keyword in. And sometimes it doesn't work. You just hit above it, search again. Then that one will work. Uh,
Uh-huh.
um,
Okay. Well, I'll let you know how the students what they have to say about Crooked
Good.
Cucumber,
Well,
the
we'll get
second
I'll
edition.
get together. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
also the most important change, and then the second printing of the first edition, it's in the notes in back, but it was what the meaning, what crooked cucumber was in Japanese and what it
Mhm.
meant. Totally
Uh-huh.
different. And the first one, I, I just said crooked cucumbers weren't, they didn't like them. I had a regular size. And Hoitsu hadn't told me until after the book came out because it's so pejorative, right? Habokuri means you useless runt. And in the translation in Japanese, they all agreed it was Habokuri, but they called the book Magadakuri, and then inside the book it's Habokuri. And Kaz thought that was a real cop-out. When I met Suzuki's son, Suzuki's brother-in-law, married his sister. He was at Zen Center, I think, and this is 20 years ago, for a memorial for his wife who died or something. And when he met me, he just went, Habokuri, right away. And I considered that a really good compliment because Gary Snyder disagreed. He said they use Magadakuri all the time that way. Anyway.
Yeah. So, well, there's now 4 or 5, I think 5 translations into Japanese of Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And Fujita Isho has done it twice.
But it's his. Use his.
Yeah. Yeah.
And his second one, well, they already had, Samga went out of business, right?
Yeah.
And
right, they went bankrupt. Yeah.
And they had 2 books of mine in Japanese, but the only one, and they had, they brought me, when Katrinka and I were in Japan 11 years ago, they didn't realize I arrived in Tokyo like a few days after they published Zen is Right Here. They didn't bother to tell me. I could have said, hey, I'm going to be in Tokyo. We could have scheduled it for that. Yeah. So, and it was in the paper. It said I was a close friend of Steve Jobs. Jesus. I never met Steve Jobs. But
well, I don't know. You've probably seen the. I don't know if I have a copy right here.
Yeah, you sent it to me.
The obi, the obi the like the little belt they put on the books, the paperbacks in Japan. For the last 3 editions of Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind translations, they've had Steve Jobs' picture on there, at least the last 2.
Steve Jobs' Bible.
And the book that he loved the book he loved, the Zen book he loved.
I have in the 3rd Tatsara Stories book, I wrote all 3 at the same time. And it was like 800-page book, so it's divided into 3. There's a section called Later in it, which, and one of them tells the true story about Steve Jobs and Zen. He was very serious. He was not playing with Zen. I mean, Kogan said he couldn't sit still very long, but his biography says he went to Tassajara for retreats. No, I did a long interview with Kotke, who was the guy who got into all this stuff with him at Reed, and was in India with him, and went to Tassajara with him. He said it was like once a year they do a little pilgrimage to Tassajara, go to the baths, buy bread, listen to the bells, and leave. Right? Walk around. He would never a student there, but it's very interesting, his relationship to Zen, and it was in my Beginner's Mind was his favorite book back there when they were in Read that and Be Here Now. But at his funeral, and also I have stuff from Les Kay, who was really the closest person to him. And Les Kay's, sort of like under the radar. But this is all on Cuke.com too now. Les Kay stayed close with Jobs later. And, Apple was his main client for
Uh-huh.
his work as a spiritual practice, and Jobs was very supportive of it. And Les Kay said at his funeral, everybody got a copy of Autobiography of a Yoga.
Oh, okay. Yogananda's book. Ah,
Yeah.
interesting.
So anyway,
Ah,
Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind was right up there. And he, he went to India looking for a guru, came back very dejected and disappointed,
mm,
and found where he lived. There
uh-huh.
was the Los Altos Zendo,
Yeah.
and started sitting there. And
Ah,
he got close to COVID, and he used to sit, and he knew less. And he sat there. It's before he was famous,
hmm.
and very close with a number of people. And I have some stuff from them.
Mm,
And anyway, you can't say he dabbled in Zen. I mean, he was very serious about it. He
uh-huh.
just he applied it in his life. It was very, very important. But you know who else was important? Was who's the calligraphy teacher from Reed?
Oh, Walt
Lloyd,
Reynolds.
huh?
Lloyd Reynolds.
Lloyd
Lloyd
Reynolds.
Reynolds.
That guy was very influential, although mainly it was his disciple. But that's why Apple had fonts,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
uh, Jobs was really into design. Uh, so anyway, he's a very interesting guy.
Yeah.
There was a book, a graphic novel about him. I have stuff on it
Mm,
on the Steve Jobs section of Cute.com that
okay.
Forbes magazine put out.
Mm,
Let an intern do it. It is the worst. It's so bad. It's just hard to imagine anything being worse, and so off, and so many factual errors. It was like Forbes should be. I've thought of getting hold of Forbes and say, you ought to put something out to make up for that. And I
hmm.
could do it. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's
All right.
ridiculous.
Well, have a good day. Have good luck with the upcoming treatment, and I'll stay in touch, and I'll let you know when we start reading. I'll have them go to the website and get the new edition of Cuke to read.
Yeah.
Of
Does that
Crooked
mean
Cucumber.
nobody will buy a book now?
Well, I can tell them to buy the book. You want me to have them buy the book instead?
You can tell them
You just told me the PDF is up on the website. So,
it's not a PDF. It's
oh,
we
okay.
have both the first edition and the second edition, and
Uh,
you can toggle from one to the
oh,
other and see
I
what
see.
was written and what's there now.
Uh,
You can
okay.
also, so it's a little tedious. Uh,
Uh,
you can also, and it's there. Each chapter or each something is a different file,
okay.
and but
Oh, well, that's a hassle. All right. I'll tell them to buy the book.
yeah, but tell them that all the changes they can
Hmm.
just uh, all the changes are
Yeah.
there, and they should know what they are. Uh,
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting for them because it's a course about writing biography. So
yeah,
that'll be
that, that
really interesting.
that's a whole file in itself. All the
Okay.
changes, but
All right.
whatever, it doesn't
Okay,
matter.
Dave.
Yeah,
I wish you all the best and thank you. This was a lot of fun. It's great to see you. I'm sorry I've been so evasive and hard to pin down for this.
well, this
My
made up for it. And look,
okay.
we've talked almost 2.5 hours. It's
Yeah.
pretty good. Of course,
Yeah.
a lot of it, the first I'll cut out. Uh, and but it's been really good. I've really enjoyed talking with you, and
Like,
I'm going to go lie down for a little bit now.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. I bet you're tired. Yeah.
I'm not tired, but if I don't you see, I sit most of the time with my legs crossed while we're
Mm.
talking. I've
Uh,
always been able to do that, but now they're down on the floor. Everywhere I work, I can do either way,
Mm.
you know.
Uh-huh.
And but generally, I lie down for a little while after working for a while, just go lie down. And
Okay.
this is second floor. It's my studio, and our guest room is right
Mm.
there. And I just go lie down. I love it. And then I,
Okay.
get up and get
Uh-huh.
back to it. All
All
right.
right.
Well, hey, it's
Okay,
been
David.
wonderful talking to you.
Wonderful talking to you.
That was not only fun, it was extremely informative. My
I'm glad.
gosh. And good luck with your DT Suzuki work.
Thank you.
And to me, the biography, great. But I think you could really have the most important thing is putting out your selection of his writings.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Uh, yeah.
Well, I'll get to
Okay.
work on that. All
Yeah.
right. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks a lot.
Bye, David.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So thanks a lot, Richard Jaffe. Very good. We really appreciated it. Wow. Very impressive, man. And thank you for being such a positive, cheerful, supportive person through the years. This has been a Kook audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Kook Audio and Kook Archives, coming to you from Sleepy Sanur with Doggett Bandita, Feline Manis, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.